The opposite of love is not hate, it is indifference. Elie Wiesel. These words, spoken by Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel during his 1999 White House speech, capture the heart of his message. He wasn't just reflecting on the past. He was warning the world. Silence in the face of suffering is complicity. Hello, my name is Dahlia Jacobs. Before researching this topic, I mostly knew Elie Wiesel as a Holocaust survivor, but I soon discovered that he was so much more. An author, an activist, and one of the most important moral voices of the 20th century. Today, I will be informing you about the life and rhetorical legacy of Elie Wiesel, focusing on his background, rhetorical skills, and the enduring impact of his speech, The Perils of Indifference. It's a message that not only resonated in 1999, but echoes even louder in today's world. To truly understand the weight of Wiesel's words, we need to begin with his story. Elie Wiesel was born in 1928 in Sighet, Romania, to a deeply religious Jewish family. At just 15 years old, he was forced into a cattle car and deported to Auschwitz, one of the Nazis' most notorious death camps. His mother and younger sister were murdered on arrival. Wiesel was separated from his father, but they were kept together through forced labor, starvation, and brutal marches. He endured unimaginable violence. His father eventually died in the Buchenwald camp just weeks before the liberation. Wiesel witnessed children being thrown into fire pits. He heard the last cries of the dying in the barracks. He saw men reduced to numbers tattooed on their arms, humanity stripped away day by day. The pain never left him, but instead of letting it destroy him, he transformed it into a voice for others. After the war, Wiesel became a journalist and eventually wrote Night, his haunting memoir that recounts his experiences in the death camps. The book has been translated into over 30 languages and remains a cornerstone of Holocaust education. But he didn't stop with memory. Wiesel took his trauma and transformed it into action. He served on the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Commission, helping shape how the nation remembers atrocity. In 1986, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize and called a messenger to mankind. Then, in 1999, he gave one of the most powerful speeches of his life, The Perils of Indifference. Standing before the President and First Lady in the White House, he asked a question that still haunts us. What happens when the world simply doesn't care? Let's take a closer look at how Wiesel made that message unforgettable. Wiesel's speech was more than emotional. It was strategically built to reach both the mind and the heart. First, he used ethos, his own moral authority. As someone who had lived through one of the world's greatest atrocities, he didn't need to justify his credibility. His presence spoke volumes. Then came pathos. Wiesel told stories, like how Holocaust survivors saw American soldiers as angels. He spoke of children in war zones, of faces fading into statistics. He made us feel their pain. And he used logos, logic. He cited places like Rwanda, Kosovo, and Cambodia. These weren't just memories of the past. They were proof that indifference still thrives in the modern world. Wiesel also used rhetorical techniques like anaphora, repeating the words indifference to drill in its danger. He made allusions to past conflicts so that his audience, many of them policymakers, couldn't ignore the parallels. Finally, his delivery was powerful, calm, deliberate, and unflinching. He paused to let his words settle. He maintained eye contact. He never raised his voice, but somehow he made the entire room stop and listen. His message didn't end with applause. It became a legacy. Elie Wiesel helped redefine what we mean when we say never again. It wasn't just a phrase, it was a demand for action. And yet, decades later, we still find ourselves repeating the same horrors. Since October 7th, 2023, Hamas's attack on Israel, anti-Semitism has surged worldwide. According to the Anti-Defamation League, there have been over 10,000 anti-Semitic incidents in the US alone, more than double the previous year. That's the highest number ever recorded. This kind of hatred, this level of scapegoating and silence, feels eerily familiar. It's a chilling echo of the very conditions Wiesel warned us about. We are watching history threaten to repeat itself. Let's look at the Bibas children. Kfir Bibas was just 9 months old when he was taken hostage along with his 4-year-old brother Ariel. Their parents, Shiri and Yardain, were kidnapped too. For months, the world hoped. Posters of their tiny faces covered city walls. News cameras followed every flicker of rumor. But the truth came out. The Bibas babies and their mother were murdered. After months in captivity, they were strangled. Their short lives ended in terror, in silence, in darkness, just like so many of the Jewish children during the Holocaust. It's impossible to learn that and not think of the children Wiesel wrote about in Night. The babies thrown into flames at Auschwitz. The toddlers who cried for their mothers as the gas hissed on. The world watched then, and they watch now. And just like then, many stayed silent. Or worse, they justify it. Or they call it too political to mourn murdered children.
It is so much easier to look away from victims. It is so much easier to avoid such rude interruptions to our work, our dreams, our hopes. It is, after all, awkward, troublesome to be involved in another person's pain and despair. Yet for the person who is indifferent, his or her neighbor are of no consequence, and therefore their lives are meaningless.
As Wiesel once said, to forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time. If we ignore the cries of these modern-day victims, whether it is the Bibas family or Jewish communities under threat, we aren't just passive, we are complicit. Wiesel's writings, speeches, and activism continues to inspire educators and human rights defenders. His work is present in classrooms, museums, and international summits.
And therefore, indifference is always the friend of the enemy, for it benefits the aggressor, never his victim whose pain is magnified when he or she feels forgotten.
He reminds us that silence benefits the oppressor, not the oppressed. Through his legacy, Wiesel continues to demand that we confront injustice whenever it arises. Today, I've shared with you the life and rhetorical legacy of Elie Wiesel, his story, his skills, and his unshakable relevance. Let me leave you with one last quote from The Perils of Indifference. Indifference is always the friend of the enemy, for it benefits the aggressor, never the victim. I love this quote because it cuts to the core of what Wiesel wanted us to understand. That when we say nothing, we choose a side, and it's not the right one. His challenge to us is the same as it was in 1999. Choose compassion over apathy. Choose action over silence. Because if we don't, who will? Thank you.